Hello everybody and welcome to a special bonus episode of the SOGOpod. The other day I got to sit down and record an interview with two of my podcasting heroes, Chris Antista and Henry Gilbert of the Laser Time Podcast Network. I've been listening to these guys since 2010 on their old show Talk Radar, and they are my personal inspiration for wanting to start a podcast. They are the reason why I think that recording inane conversations with your friends and putting them out on the internet is a good thing. And in this interview, we go through the history of Laser Time, how it came about, and we also go through the perils of crowdfunding since they just launched a new Patreon, as well as the perils of living in San Francisco, California. So please enjoy. So what was the inspiration for creating Laser Time?
For creating Laser Time? Well, it was a bunch of us, I think. It was sort of that we were doing a podcast working at a single company, and we really liked doing podcasts. And, I mean, I'm not placing blame on that particular company, but it was like there was no money in it, so they didn't care whether we did it or not, and a couple of us were moving on. We wanted to keep making a show. And part of it was we were working in games, guess what? We liked so many other things, and I think it was kind of a bummer just to like having to talk about games every week, even when you don't want to. Maybe you feel that on your show, like having to stick to a topic sometimes. It can be a bit of a bummer after like 200 episodes. So what about a show that opened us up to everything else?
Yeah, and I think the most fun we had on the old show often was not talking about video games.
It was deviating.
And so yeah, and Chris he put the money into buying the equipment and setting up the beautiful kitchen studio we have here.
As the story goes, I wrote and starred in some basically just commercials for Dead Island, and with that money I immediately turned it around and won the rights to Bambi's music. And I won the rights to Bambi's music, and I tried to pay the dude, and something happened, and then I got a hurried phone call on the floor of Comic-Con. He's like, "Hey man, I need that money now." I'm like, "I can barely hear you. I have no internet. Like, I can't give you the money for Bambi's music right now." And he's like, and I was like, "Do you want it?" Like, "Dude, I do want it, but I can't get you a check. You don't take PayPal. What do you expect me to do? I've been trying to give you this money for weeks. This is the worst possible time." And he's like, "I'll just give it to somebody else." If you're like, "I don't want to deal with you anymore." And so I let the rights go. I still kick myself for that every day, but I took I think that was like $2,000, and I just bought equipment, and yeah, probably the best money I ever spent.
I'd say that investment has paid off, maybe more than Bambi.
I don't know. It was rumored that could make up to $90 a year in dividends.
Well, you see, yeah, and then we just, we all loved recording the podcast, and it was fun doing it on the side of work, though sometimes it wasn't easy.
And nobody was really getting any money either. So
no. And then it just, we started that, and I think it was 2012 officially, and we just kept going from there, and then it came to the point where I didn't have a job, and Dave Rudden didn't have a job, and
well, I think it I'd like to think it ballooned organic. Like you wanted to start a comic show, and then Michael wanted to start a video game show, and it was sort of like, well, we can't. This is becoming a lot of work, and it kind of doesn't work unless there's money, and then there wasn't any money, and then Patreon stepped in and kind of saved the day.
So, following up on that, you said that the company you worked for, they didn't see any money in podcasting and how that. And
from their perspective, if they're employing 5 people and they want to do a 3-hour show, I mean, it's kind of a waste of money. Like, you want to get money out of your employees. I don't fault them for that, but it also wasn't an interest. I don't think they saw I think now podcasting is at a point where it is worthwhile for a company that size to do it. They weren't there then.
You have to feel slightly vindicated, though, with the popularity of, Serial and things like that.
Yeah, for real.
Everybody's getting into podcasting now.
Like I mean, like watching other shows do well and becoming mainstream topics of conversation are sort of like, yeah, see.
If there's one thing I like, it's vindication and sour grapes, and yes, that does feel good on a certain level. But yeah, it is,
and definitely not our success. I'm saying the success of the medium. There are people making money just without crowdfunding, exclusively on the basis of finding an audience, and we were fortunate enough to piggyback and basically steal the audience from Games Radar and take it with us. And I don't want to.
I wouldn't say steal. I'd say they didn't want. Maybe people didn't want that audience anymore.
They did. Well, they didn't care.
Yeah. Well,
we cared.
Seeing it from their side, I would say in 2010, 2011, if you said to a theoretical boss somewhere that like, hey, I think we could get this to make us like $20,000. We could score an ad deal for like $30,000. That is chump change to some people, and they think that is not worth it for you to make that money. We see theoretical $1 million over here
because, to their credit, it wouldn't have paid off without crowdfunding.
It wouldn't have.
Yeah, I mean, there are other podcasts that can do that, but like, I am eternally grateful for being able to do that there because we wouldn't have the size of the audience we do now.
No, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah. So fuck you and thank you.
Yeah, it is a little bit like almost that you had to go through that, had to see that success and how that came about, and then transferred that into.
I don't want to refer to it like it was a bad experience, but like the idea of creating something for ourselves. When you work at a big company, you don't get to be involved in all the decisions, and a lot of things happen around you, whether you like it or not. And I don't know, it's just kind of like, well, maybe we can do this on our own.
Yeah. You're a cog in a machine, and that's just corporations in general. That's nothing special about where we used to work, you know. So.
Nothing's super cynical like that, but it's like they could change direction at any moment they wanted and cancel everything we like doing. And I didn't really want to work in that. Like if you feel like you're good at something, then I don't know, maybe you want a little more control over your own destiny.
Trying to get into a little bit more humorous topic, I guess.
Bill Cosby.
I'm 26 years old, so I'm much younger than you guys. You're all
much younger, Jesus.
Hey, you're like older, 80 years old.
You're older than the new Fantastic Four, so take that.
Okay, you got a point. And like you said on another podcast, nothing I ever done will ever amount to Crazy Town's Butterfly. So
did I say that?
Saying.
Oh man, that's a really depressing way to think about creative work. Nothing any of us will ever do will be as ubiquitous as Limp Bizkit's cover of George Michael's Faith.
No way.
No, nothing will ever be as.
Nope.
That's the best thing in the world, though. I mean, come on.
It is. That's a humanities crescendo.
That's when everything started going downhill. Moment after that, I mean, hey. 9/11 wasn't that far after that.
Exactly.
When you think about it that way.
Yeah, everybody started calling the Berenstein Bears the wrong name. It's crazy. Topsy-turvy.
So yeah, I'm 26, and I'm trying to figure out why I know all these things that you're referencing. Because like I'm just like, I know all these things, but you're old enough that you're experiencing a whole other level of pop culture, whole different generation of pop culture.
I think your age puts you like in a slightly different pop culture bracket generationally.
Yeah.
But there are still ways to see all this stuff. I'm sure we bring up some obscurities, but like I don't know, what were we talking? Keep going. Sorry.
I think for me is that it's just the fact that I was raised poor.
Oh.
So I got everything 4 years after everybody else.
A lot of Goodwill VHSs with 2 episodes of Tiny Toons on them.
I didn't catch Batman and Robin until it came on Fox.
Okay, that makes sense.
I feel like that might actually be the way what happened, but yeah, I feel like there is a weird connection to how weird, rare pop culture or just minutia that you pick up on from listening to podcasts, from watching YouTube videos and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. It's weird that you are basically able to capitalize that and turn it into this sort of venture that you have.
Well, to me, those are the most important things in the world, and I could go on all day about this awesome anecdote I had at the mattress store, but ultimately we all relate to the first time we saw Batman, or the first time we saw Daffy Duck get his ass kicked, or I don't know. There's like I love little moments like, because I grew up. I explained it to somebody. I grew up like not understanding sports in like a southern town, and I felt completely ostracized to what everybody was talking about. And finding the internet was kind of like, oh, there's a place where Star Wars is sports.
Well, for me, I think it was one of my favorite things just to do in a one-on-one personal conversation. The easiest ways for me to connect with people is to say,
have you seen this?
Oh, do you remember this thing?
Yeah.
Or hey, remember when you were a kid and this commercial was on TV or this thing? And that is always what I've dug into on podcasts, like as a listener to other podcasts and also doing these. Like that is what I just saying like, oh, do you remember this bubble tape commercial that we all saw all the time on TV?
This is all a big, wonderful experiment of how humanity copes with boredom through shared experiences. And I don't know, it's lovely. Like even game streams are an example of that. Like I played this game, I'm going to watch this asshole play. Can I curse? I didn't ask.
Yeah. That's
okay,
fine.
good. Thank God.
Trust me.
Yeah,
I say it. Yeah, about every other word.
Okay.
If I'm not watching myself.
Good. I love
it's
toilet
the
mouth.
F-bomb, yeah, it's great. Especially when you have a kid.
Oh goodness, that scares the HE double hockey stick out of me.
We've had it hard enough with we have one friend who has a 3-year-old now, and he has to keep reminding us she can hear you and she will repeat the words you say. You kind of have to stop.
He literally doesn't even say that to me. He just has a look that he shoots me when I say something that. Not only that, I'm kind of a fucking spaz, and I was moving around a little too spastically, and then so is she. And I kind of caught her in the eye with my fingernail during one massive gesticulation, and I caught her in the eye and kind of cut her with my pinky.
Wow.
My pinky nail.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I cut a bitch.
Is that your coke nail? Is that what that is?
It was my coke nail, or the lazy man child's nail.
That is something I miss about working in retail, is seeing the random person buy something and then noticing they have a coke nail. And saying, oh, that's a really long nail. Oh, you do cocaine.
That's not what it means. Don't assume that. You cut your nails at my house because they were they were Cruella de Vil level.
It's not about. I had a lot of long fingernails, but when you have one, say pinky or index finger, I feel safer in guessing what it's for.
I used to like cocaine a lot, and a key works just as well.
Yeah.
As a fingernail.
Okay, but there's the coke nail, and then there's the pack of Parliament cigarettes.
Yeah.
If you have either one of those,
okay, then you're collecting more evidence, and I agree. Then we can start casting judgment.
I do have to ask though. There was a little bit of weird minor backlash when you guys started the Patreon. Just a very small but very vocal couple of people I noticed on Twitter.
Yes,
that's what Twitter's for. Responding to things without thinking.
Though, I do know with one person who I didn't engage with them, Chris did, but I did see, I recall one person, I'm not going to name them, but there was one person who was like, oh, you guys it was just a real negative response to Patreon, but Chris kind of talked it out with them, and I think you came to an understanding about it, right?
I came to an understanding and also got to get my insults in, because it's I don't think podcasts are work. I do podcasts all the time. They're not work. I'm like, if you feel like you're not working hard making a podcast, I bet your audience can tell. And we're not working as much as you'd like on a show, but we're also working on a lot of shows, and we're working on a lot of videos, and we're working on a lot of articles. So it's not just about supporting the podcast. It's just that's what most people know us through. A lot of people don't go to the website or the YouTube channel. Yeah,
but I think I was honestly prepared for more. I'm always prepared for the worst, and I feared more negativity than what we got. If I see a tweet, a barbed tweet sent our way, it does kind of get to me. But I think people came to understood it, and I think we've made it pretty clear. No, this is our job now. This is no longer the thing we do on top of another job. Yeah. This is our job now.
And we just added a bunch of other things, supplemental stuff, and we didn't put anything else we didn't put anything that was pre-existing behind a paywall.
Yeah.
I don't know if we had the best model, but we strove to make everything seem fair. I don't like asking for people's money either, but trying to grow as a normal business and make money off of like ad revenue. Like it's just not realistic unless you're in the like millions territory.
Now, did you think when you started mapping out everything that you were going to be providing through the Patreon, have you hit a point yet, or did you hit a point then where you're like,
I fucked up.
We might have overpromised.
Yes.
On some.
Yes. Well, because I didn't think
I
didn't think we'd get a quarter of what we ended up getting, just because based on like other Patreon. We were just talking to someone about that, but they were mentioning the silent minority who was always willing to support us, but maybe
silent majority.
Well, who weren't talking to us on Twitter or like on because we asked people about it, and I just didn't think. I didn't think there was that many people we could depend on to give us $1, and I don't know. I was very, very surprised, and everything unlocked in the first day.
Shockingly, we could not believe it.
And the only stress I have related to it is every day now I'm obligated to do multiple things as part of the Patreon, and not that I think that's a bad thing, but like I don't know, like I think. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird being paid to do exactly what people want you to do. But only because like I have a lot of fun with experimentation, and this has taken a lot of time out of experimentation. But I'm not complaining. It's a great way to make a living.
Yeah, and I think we're still figuring out like balancing and time management of all this stuff, and also, I mean, Dave and I, Chris has been very understanding of Dave and I's lack of knowledge on a lot of the technical side of things, and we're trying to learn as we go and take on more things, but that also is, you know, it's adding time to it. But I think we're getting used to it, and maybe we did overpromise just out of fear of like we're not going to get like the amount was $4,000. If we can get to $4,000, we'll keep doing Laser Time past in 2016. Right? Was that what
there was an eject button as a just because once a couple of you guys were without jobs, like I can't keep depending on you to do this full time unless you're being compensated.
But that shows you like we're like, well, maybe someday we'll get 4,000.
And that's what I tried to explain to the haters. It's not about like. Yeah, if you don't think it's worth it, then don't pay. But like the idea is that we're trying our best to make it seem worth it. And you're not compensating us necessarily for the content. It's just like the time to create this content. Like we have to pay rent still. Yeah,
and when I've heard the rent of other people pay in places that are not the Bay Area, I'm like, man, we would be rich.
I keep telling you, man, we gotta buy the Laser Time cul-de-sac in Detroit, and we'll just we'll own this whole we'll own this whole fucking street. It'll be great.
It's probably an old police headquarters.
Yeah. Oh my God! Don't even start that. Now we're talking like
pretty great,
Batman headquarters. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Oh, we can record in the cell. I bet it's got good soundproofing.
Well, we saw. I mean, everybody saw in the article that was going around about the rent prices in San Francisco for a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah. We're fortunate enough to be on rent control, but you know, like our rent is still over $1,000 a month just to live in what's.
Person, you mean?
Like, yeah, per person. One of the. It's not. I don't dislike the neighborhood, but it is. Yes, in a bad neighborhood.
Not a great neighborhood.
But I'm a tall person, so I don't get scared. My girlfriend doesn't like this neighborhood.
Yes, yeah. And I'm not the biggest fan of. I wasn't the biggest fan of walking through this neighborhood when I first started coming here regularly. But now I'm like, whatever. I would not walk on 6th Street ever.
I stepped in human shit the other day. And I was real upset by it, but I was also like, I was doing that because I wasn't paying much attention because I was in a hurry because I had to run down to GameStop and buy a Rare Replay. And I just like, I'll just wipe all the shit off on the GameStop floor. This is all good. This is.
I mean, it's just same thing as somebody bringing in a copy of Bomberman Act Zero.
Yeah,
there you go.
Very similar.
You give me a penny and I'll leave.
Right. I've had games that they were just like, we can't take this because we can't sell this thing anymore, you know? Like
there is a giant sale now on Wii Games, and we just started, thanks to Patreon, a streaming show called the Laser Time Shit Show, which is frankly all I ever wanted to stream anyway, like bad license games and terrible stuff. Yeah. And I'm thinking of just like taking a Santa sack in there and just
There's one you need to get if you're doing the shit show.
Ooh, let me hear it.
It's called Farm Animal Racing Tournament. FART.
Is that for
Whoa.
Is that for Wii?
Yes.
Of course it is.
Wow.
We actually played it on our YouTube channel I'll put a plug here. SOGOpod, that's the name of the podcast, and we have a YouTube channel. We did play it, and it is god awful.
Wow, it's rare I hear about a terrible game I've never heard of before. But
it's made by Zoo.
Zoo. They really had a good. Them and Majesco really made out like bandits with the Wii.
I guess. I mean, they
Seemed
robbed
like it.
people, sure. Oh boy, yeah. The Wii, I think is like we played. Oh no, it was actually Wii U, but one of the worst ones we played before the shit show, and just in how boring it was. Was that Avengers game for the Wii U?
Oh man, that is
Avengers game.
That is like an incredible waste of time. Given like
and then they charged $50 for that.
Yeah,
$50 for that at one point.
That was not good.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of terrible video games out there, so y'all definitely have more than enough content.
Yeah, there are, and like I don't know. All I want to do now is find beauty in the bad, and it excites me so much.
There was nothing to find in Bubsy. Bubsy 3D was one of the worst.
But I would have kept playing that game longer. I just I don't know. Like I don't know. I guess I've played too many competent games in my life. And I always say that to aspiring game reviewers: play yourself some bad games, so you know how good the good ones are.
Going back to the Patreon stuff, I know like one of your top tier rewards, and one of the last things you have, besides the joke one that's always like $3 billion, is the 24-hour live stream.
Yeah,
and my podcast is about to embark without $10,000.
Oh, really?
On a 48-hour live stream.
Oh my god!
48?
Yeah.
Wow.
The weekend prior to the release of Metal Gear Solid.
Oh, you're gonna do all the games?
Yes.
See, I want to do that
series. So we've been wanting to do this since we heard that Metal Gear Solid 5 was coming out. We're like, we have to do this. This has to.
That sounds awesome. I want to do that too.
So you can come along.
No, I'm going to check in on that. That is. Wow, I mean, when we did the 24-hour, we put that in there too because that's something we did at our old place, and we had a lot of fun with those. Though they also were like, I'm not a night owl. Like I'm really bad at staying up late. Like Chris will mock me when I'm like yawning, like, oh, it's 11 o'clock.
You give loud Buster Bluth yawns,
Yes.
so we can hear you.
And so the staying up all night thing can really get to me. And also, I find myself better at staying awake when talking to camera than playing a video game too. So I would usually try to involve myself more in the stream.
Yeah.
But we were just like, you know what? This was something a lot of our most hardcore fans remember us doing. And
well, I'll tell you why I wanted to do it. Because it was something we only had to do once. Like
yeah, there's that too.
Exactly.
Like to do anything, there are definitely things I would like to do on a regular basis. They just require commitment from people who aren't here yet, or maybe can't come aboard. I don't know, but it's like to commit to anything on a regular basis now. Like I'm stretched pretty thin.
We're all stretched pretty thin, yeah. But we're like we said earlier, we're still figuring that out.
I'm not complaining because I'm doing exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
It's just it's weird to have my life very regimented for the first time in about a year. even at my old job, it was not this regimented. There's every normal corporate job will give you tons of fuck around time, and I don't really have any of that anymore.
So there's a lot of content out there on the internet that is it feels a little cheap. Easy to put out, easy to develop content, you know, clickbait type articles that you see, and not things that people call clickbait that are just actually well written articles.
Sure.
But actual clickbait. And then there's podcasts that are produced solely to get advertising money for corporations and everything like that. There's a lot of things like that out there. And do you see the way you guys approach doing podcasting, where you put a lot of research and a lot of thought and insight into what you're doing? Do you see that the staying viable in the long run over the course, or do you think like
the big bummer is like now I think podcasts have become so viable that now every dipshit celebrity in the universe is getting one, because that's all you need to make a successful show. Some asshole talking into a microphone with maybe, if you're lucky, with a couple of his buddies.
Well, yeah, and they're not like trained broadcasters like just Shaq. And I love Shaq, but him deciding to do a podcast, I just thought, like, I just don't think you're ready for it, Shaq.
And I'm not. I don't want to sound like sour grapes. I'm worried about having to compete with those guys but the shows are structured as such. Whenever I tell people I do a podcast, and I do think I have a group of funny friends. I do think I'm capable of once per hour saying something funny, but I don't. The show isn't about, like, we carry the show on pop culture topics that people are interested in, because we have to have it all. We have to try a little harder than Shaq to do a show.
Yeah,
because Shaq's allowed to have a bad show. No one's heard of us. Like we have to operate as if you've never heard us before. So if we present to you a better show with maybe some better sound equipment and some audio clips, it's one thing just to talk about stuff. We love playing media clips of things and relevant music, all that's and doing research. I mean, we're just from our writing backgrounds. We're just trained to do that anyway. I love doing research on stuff.
Yeah, and that's the same like how we treated quote unquote clickbait articles. Even when I would do articles that I knew were not like, this is not deep investigative work I'm doing or whatever, to have like the top 10 eye patches or whatever. Yeah. But even when we were doing those, we always thought to ourselves like, we have to find like 2 nobody would ever think of. Yeah, it can't be the 8 most obvious ones.
And we got to Photoshop shit and make something funny out of this, and like just make sure people don't regret the time. I hate that there are so many articles I do end up clicking on and resent the time I spent here.
Yeah, I knew all these things already.
And like, you didn't... to try not, I just got to work for 3 weeks on an article about product placement in animated films, and I can't imagine a corporation that would allow me to spend that much time and resources like getting pictures from Honey Nut Cheerios box in the Chipmunk Adventure just to prove a dumb point that no one cares about. It's anti-clickbait. You shouldn't care about this, but I do.
Yeah. So I still think there is a future for this stuff. I think especially with a podcast, like you might get drawn in by a big name or by an interesting idea, but if they can't be consistently entertaining, it's harder to stick around.
Right. Like, that's why don't worry about it.
I dropped podcasts because I was like, oh, this is a cool idea. And then after 7 episodes, I just think, I'm not into this person anymore. Or,
Stone Cold Steve Austin show.
Actually, no. I would say, I think Stone Cold is one of the better broadcasters.
He's morphed into something really entertaining.
It's just, I don't know, something about his, it's when he doesn't do an interview. I kind of like him as an interviewer.
Yeah.
I don't really like him as like, tell me a story about your dog again. I don't, that
goddamn dogs at the Broken Skull Ranch.
But I'd rather him tell. I honestly prefer hearing him tell a story to say Chris Jericho. But yeah, I know what you mean. Though actually, from the most recent Stone Cold, he had this revelation that was I had never thought of before. That his certain level of fame in the story he's telling, he's like, so me and my wife stopped at a Walmart. And I sent her in there to get beer because I can't go in a Walmart. Steve Austin cannot take 4 steps in a Walmart without being stopped by every person.
Without being hailed as their king?
Yes.
Yeah, I was about to say, Steve Austin walks into a Walmart and people notice him? I live in Bumblefunk, Georgia, so, I walk into Walmart and I see a billion Steve Austins.
That's true. Maybe he is hiding in plain sight at those things.
Oh, my God. Yeah, he wouldn't take a lot to disguise yourself as Steve Austin, come to think of it.
6 foot tall guy with
camouflage shorts.
Camouflage shorts, black T-shirt, and a blue tee.
Yeah,
we know what it is.
A hat with a pattern of sticks and leaves. We can all do this.
Right, yeah. All right, well, thanks, guys, for allowing me to interview you.
Yeah, man, it was fun.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.